The new generation of the Australian Kangaroos had their first test on the weekend and they fell over against a resurgent New Zealand side. Doesn't get any easier this week, playing against the heroes of the last World Cup, the Tongan team. Now, going to that Australian game, were Australia bad or was New Zealand better?
Yeah, it's hard to say because I think we've just been blessed with the core of players that we've had for the last 20 years. You've got to go through the Andrew Johns, the Darren Lockyers, the Danny Badirases, now the Cameron Smiths, Billy Slaters, Jonathan Thurston's, Cooper Cronks. They're just off the top of my head. You know, Greg Inglis is coming at the back end of his representative career. Now that our back five was outstanding, but our core, which is our 9, 7, 6 and 1, they never play football together. So you got to understand, and you got to see some, you know, a little bit of rust out there, you know, because the continuity, they don't play at club level, they don't do anything. So to go out there, our forwards got out-muscled, which I think this week when they do play against the Tongan team, they're really going to have to step up. And I think just the halves, like New Zealand, just like, you've got to give credit to New Zealand. They played well, they played hard, they played fast, but I think we were still a better side. But in saying that, Australia played poor. You know, our completion rates were awful. We made about 12 mistakes, and the possession, the Kiwis held possession in the first half. So all these little things, they get you at the back end of the game when we had no gas to score a try. You know, like the 30% in the first half. There's a couple of little things where Latrell Mitchell in the first half, they called it a forward pass when they would have went inside and they probably would have scored the game. It could have stretched them out to a 14-point lead. But then they call it back, and then New Zealand have about 5 sets on our line, which takes so much gas out of you. You know, these guys just finished. You know, some of these guys haven't played for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, so that takes so much gas out of you, and then it's going to hit you at the back end of the game. And that was all because like of a couple of mistakes off a forward pass. And if you go back to that one little play that changed the game, so they had about 5 or 6. They scored a couple of tries, and the momentum went their way. Then we went into we're lucky to go into the halftime leading.
Yeah, and I think you talk about blokes that haven't played in 6 weeks. The blokes that had played were probably in the grand final.
Yeah.
And they've been on the drink for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so the Australians, they've lost Keary early on in the game. They lost Munster before the game for personal reasons. They've lost Keary. They've got Ben Hunt comes on. Ben Hunt and Cherry Evans. They're probably both genuine halfbacks rather than a 5'8". So I think Australia had excuses. And as you say, they haven't played together. But I think a lot of credit needs to go to New Zealand.
Yeah, I think losing Keary was massive because they didn't plan on using Ben Hunt in the halves.
No.
They wanted him to come on for Cook.
For Cook.
And Keary, you see in that first 15 minutes, they were absolutely tearing New Zealand's right side to shreds.
Yeah.
Latrell Mitchell had his way with Manu, but then Manu ended up coming back and playing outstanding. But losing Keary, it's sort of stuffed up because that's that whole Roosters connection.
That is.
You know, and they know how each other plays. You still had Tedesco around the back and all that kind of stuff. So putting Ben Hunt into that little system, he just didn't fit. He would have had his head programmed into coming on at 9, making sure his defence is right, everything like and knowing that. Didn't plan on coming into the halves.
Yeah.
And that's where I put a lot of pressure on Cherry Evans, where he did make a lot of good decisions, but then there was a couple of decisions where he just didn't have the opportunity to make. Like they had so much ball and New Zealand was so dominant. By the time they got the ball, Australia was so fucked. They were just tired. You know, like
Sean Johnson did play well.
Sean Johnson played well, but he was the best player. Hargraves was the best player on the field.
Yeah.
20 plus hit ups, nearly 200 metres, 30 tackles, was aggressive as hell. And, he deserved man of the match. I think Sean Johnson just put the icing on the cake.
Full credit to Michael Maguire too. I mean, he's got to a point last year. It's not a hugely dissimilar side from the side that couldn't beat an egg in the World Cup. They've come through now. They've had, a little bit of time with Maguire. They genuinely looked like they wanted to play for each other. Yeah,
well, I mean, that's the culture that he's been trying to build. I mean, Wayne Bennett was part of that sort of system in 2008 where they built into that. And I think they're slowly getting into that sort of system where, they've got Sean Johnson. He's got so much pressure every time he puts that jersey on because people know how talented he is and what he can do. Like he turns up every 10 tests against Australia. Like you want him every single test and to perform at that level because he's such a freakish athlete and a football player. So you just want to give him more responsibility.
Interestingly, the general public voted with their feet. They only had a crowd of about 15,000, which in any way you look at it is a disappointing
It's terrible.
crowd. This week, They're playing against Tonga. The football doesn't get any easier, but I tell you what, if there was 5 Australians in the crowd last week and 15,000 Kiwis, there's 5 Australians in the crowd this week and there's 30,000 absolutely mental Tongans who are so buoyed by the results of last year's World Cup. It does not get any easier this week.
They can smell blood.
Yeah.
It's a very vulnerable Australian side at the moment. They're down on confidence maybe because they've just got beaten that one game and they know they're coming up against a formidable offence. You know, like that Taumalolo, Fafita, Junior Pangai. They're some of the most destructive runners in the game.
That's the best forward pack in International Rugby League. There's no question.
There is no question. Sikamanu's leading the way. You've got Fafita and Takayaho, Willie. The only way it's going to let them down is maybe their fitness and the 7 and 6.
Yeah.
But it's just going to be amazing to see, like, the Red Sea, like we've seen it last year against England at Ericsson. I keep calling it Ericsson. I don't even know what it was called.
Yeah.
But it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like you will not see a green and gold jersey anywhere. No. It's going to be surrounded by Tongans. I've been following all the boys on their Instagram stories, and the welcoming they got from when they got to New Zealand, 7,000 Tongans with their red flags going up and down the street. It's something that people haven't seen before. You know, with Origin, you don't get that. It's a different sort of passion and hatred, like in Origin. In Test football, we haven't seen that ever. I've never seen it in the history of my rep football career, and now these guys get to experience it. So playing for Australia or Tonga is going to be something that is going to be something to remember.
Do you know what? You mentioned Andrew Fafita before, and you mentioned Instagram. As a matter of course, Instagram is now everywhere. But Andrew Fafita and Jason Taumalolo, they are the reason that this is what it is now. If it wasn't for those two blokes nailing their sails to the mast of the Tongan side, this would never be anywhere near what it is now. No. And I think Andrew Fafita came out this week. He's a new human headline. He's taken over from W. Mason. But I agree with what he's saying. You know, they should be. It's not a tier 2 nation anymore. This side legitimately could beat Australia. Yeah.
I think Andrew Fafita has been... I love because he stands up for himself. You know, he has got a fair platform on Instagram, and the difference is between, you know, the early 2000s before all this social media stuff, we never had a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
Now he can question the media. He can say, you've taken my words out of context, all this sort of stuff, start arguments. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. Because all he knows is he can play football. He plays great football for Cronulla. He could have made the Australian side. He could have done it. He could have given up his jersey and dropped out of the Australian side in a different manner. But people don't know the backstory, how he went to Tonga and seen his grandparents and everything like that, and it just changed his heart in that moment. So people don't understand.
You've played for both. You've played for both. And I mean, you started with Tonga. I mean, that was, you know, when you were a young kid coming through the grades, you played for Tonga. And you in no way, and I noticed one thing he said was that unless you've got 2 nations, you don't know what you're talking about. Now, you proudly represented Tonga when you were a kid. And then you had the opportunity to play for Australia. That doesn't mean that you're announcing your Australian or your Tongan heritage. No. You're just playing for the side
and you just don't know where you are unless you're half caste, half Tongan. He's half Tongan, half Aboriginal. He affiliates with both sides. He's proud of both heritages. And is that a word?
Heritages. Double heritage.
Of his heritage, double heritage, whatever. But he's so proud of it, and he represents the Indigenous community and he represents the Tongan community. And unless you are half and half of something, you just won't understand.
Yeah.
Like I understand that because I'm half Australian and I'm half Tongan.
Yeah.
So I've represented at the highest in the Australian side, and I've represented Tonga
and 5%
as well.
Iberian.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. I say, and it's hard to grasp if you're just Australian.
Yeah.
You know, or if you're full Islander.
Yeah.
You know, because I can understand fully from Andrew Fafita's point of view. It's like you want to do that thing, you want to do that for your family back at home in Tonga, but then you want to represent it at the highest.
Yeah.
So he's done it I think he's done it in reverse. He represented Australia, and then he just come back to Tonga, and it's not regressing now at the moment because he's coming back to Tonga. They're a top 4 nation in the world, and he's going to bring them up.
Top 2.
And they're a fair chance of beating Australia.
And
that's a massive. It's just I don't think people understand what it means to the Tongan people. And if you have a look at if you just watch the game this week and have a look at the amount of passion these blokes are going to play with, the singing, the hymns, and everything within the crowd, you just don't understand.
We've been lucky enough over the last few weeks to be involved with the Polish rugby league team in the emerging nations. Now, that's had no publicity. It's had no support from the NRL, from the International Rugby League. They're doing their best. If you look at Andrew Fafita and what he's done and what Jason Taumalolo's done for the international game, if rugby league legitimately wants to grow, then they need to support Tonga, they need to support Samoa, they need to support the Pacific Islands, and they also need to start thinking about what they can do to grow the game. Because at the end of the day, if rugby league stays as a tribal club game, it's not the AFL. It's played in two states. This is great for rugby league, and why anyone wouldn't agree with that is beyond me.
And we weren't even going to play this test. They had to sort of beg Australia.
They took a pay cut. To their credit,
and to the Aussies' credit, and to the ARL and to the Kangaroos, like they did say, all right, let's play Tonga. We want, because Tonga, I think, is like they beat New Zealand last year, and they were 2 points. They should have probably won that game. I'm not going to bring it up. But they should have won that game. It should have been in the final. So they're pretty much sorry, mate, Chechen. So they are pretty much a top 3 nation.
Yeah, they are.
And they're going to come this week, and they're going to come with it. So if this forward pack for Australia isn't ready, they're going to get dusted. Because if you think New Zealand was dominant on the weekend, Tonga's forward pack is better than New Zealand.
Yeah.
They're stronger, they're bigger, they're faster. They're probably just not as fit because they've probably been doing some other stuff in their break. But I think just the amount of emotion that they're going to be carrying and the whole nation they're going to be carrying on that back and in that crest, the Matimā Tonga die for Tonga, they will die for Tonga.
So 20 minutes into the game, you've got probably the best forward pack in the world running at you. You're defending on your line and you're thinking, I'm paying these blokes to run into me.
I'm actually paying
I'm paying these blokes.
If you're the young little Damien Cook and I'm actually paying Taumalolo to run straight over me. And that's what they're going to do. They look at New Zealand. They spotted Cook up.
Yeah.
And they made him make about 50 tackles and he slips off a lot of tackles. So if you don't think they're going to come straight through that ruck, you've got another thing coming.
So who wins?
I'm going with the upset. Tonga 18-12.
18-12, we're going for scores as well. I for the good of the international game.
I think I'm being, but I just want to see that. I just want to see him play. I think Australia might get him with skill, but I'm backing Tonga.